Hello and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's review for Star Trek Discovery Season 3, Episode 9, Terra Firma Part 1. This video is part of a series of videos where I review episodes of Star Trek Discovery, so I have to start with a spoiler warning for Discovery up to Season 3, Episode 9. If you haven't seen up to this point, you will not want to watch this video, otherwise some things will be spoiled for you. So, Terra Firma Part 1. While it looks like this time there actually is going to be a Part 2, that is not just going to say Part 1 just for the hell of it, like the season premiere did, and maybe they'll come out with Part 2 20 years later, just like they came out with Unification 3. But anyway, so, if you catch my reviews of the previous week, you would notice that I was becoming increasingly less impressed with Season 3 of Discovery as the season goes on. I was really impressed at the start. Well, maybe not the first episode, but towards the beginning, up to episode 4 or 5. But then I thought it started to meander a bit. It kind of lost its purpose. And when I saw the preview for this week's episode, that was all going to be about Georgiou, her disappearing act, which is a storyline I didn't really care for. I wasn't that interested. So, I was actually quite surprised, pleasantly surprised, that I actually really liked this episode. I was not expecting to. I'm not sure. I'm recording this before I watch anyone else's review or see any comments, so I don't know how other people feel about this episode yet. But I imagine there'll be a lot of people who don't like it because it's a return to the mirror universe, which I think a lot of people really didn't care for in Season 1 and kind of want to move beyond. Which I would probably include myself in that to an extent, but I've actually surprised how good this episode is, how much I liked it, how interesting it is, because, alright, so let me start with, I guess, Georgiou and her relationship with Burnham, because this is a relationship, I wasn't interested in. I said in previous episodes, like the one where they ran off in the mission together to, save Book and his friends. I didn't really care. The Burnham and Georgiou's interactions, Georgiou in general was a character who seemed kind of unnecessary, and I didn't really care. And plus, she would have a lot of really stupid lines. I think where she come off leave me alone, kind of like an annoying bully type. I don't know. But anyway, I wasn't interested in their character story all that much. But this episode, I actually think, did a really good job, and it actually got me interested in it again. From the very beginning, even before they went into the mirror universe, just the way that Georgiou, I think it must just have been better written than some of these previous episodes, because it just seemed a lot more interesting to me all of a sudden. It seemed more real, it seemed more tangible. The interactions between Burnham and Georgiou. Now, you had the line with Georgiou was in the mess hall being really, rude to Tilly and treating her like shit when Tilly just wanted to help. Which, that's totally in Georgiou's character. I wouldn't really expect her to react any other way, but I still didn't care for that. So I don't really care to see her being like a bitch to everyone. I'm just kind of over it and sick of it. But other than that, the way they explored her relationship with Burnham actually made a lot of sense of why she still has this connection. Because I think I criticized in the past when they brought up Georgiou's connection to Burnham. And that's because I didn't really think it was earned. And I think this episode kind of earned it, to be fair. Especially getting into the backstory even before Georgiou left, when her and Burnham are talking about comparing Michael Burnham to the version of her in her own universe and her own connection to her, and also then also of course Burnham compares Georgiou to the other Georgiou, and it's funny because Emperor Georgiou constantly criticizes Burnham for the only reason why she likes her, that Prime Michael Burnham likes her, is because of she reminds her of her Giorgio, of Prime Giorgio. But it's funny, we got actually the flip side of that, which explored it. And I mean, it's kind of there, but this actually made it a lot more clear and make a lot more sense. That Emperor Giorgio only cared for Prime Burnham because she reminded her of Mirror Burnham. So she was actually being a hypocrite when she was saying that to Burnham, because she was actually doing the same thing, sort of. And in a way, she almost found Prime Burnham as like her second chance to mend the relationship. And I think in this episode, Michael Burnham does hit Giorgio really hard with the fact that she does completely regret having to kill Michael Burnham. And so that actually retroactively makes her motivations throughout season 2 and 3 make a lot more sense, that she's tethered to help Michael Burnham as a penance, as a way to like fulfill these regret about killing Michael Burnham. And that kind of justifies her inclusion here. That makes her why she joined Discovery and why she went into the future with them. It makes it all make a lot more sense. And they did it in a way that I totally buy, that I actually thought was good storytelling. Because as I said in previous episodes, I didn't quite buy the relationship, nor did I care about it. But here, I actually did buy it. And I actually did think it made a lot of sense. So first and foremost, I think this is a really great character story. And of course, once Giorgio went back into the Mirror Universe, they explored this even more, made it even more clear how regretful she is about having to kill Michael Burnham, to the fact that she's trying to find some other way to not kill her, to make things right, to adjust things, so that way she won't have to like go back to the Prime timeline or go back to Prime Burnham, because her main goal would be to fix her own, like the real, or in her mind, the real Michael Burnham, her Michael Burnham, and fix her relationship with her. But then it seems like the episode is, and of course this is only part 1, so I don't know for sure where they're taking this, but it does seem like they're going in a kind of type 1 time travel kind of way, a kind of whatever happened, that even as Giorgio changes the past, she can't change it. She can't really change it, and that everything's going to course correct herself to her having to kill Michael Burnham, or at least Michael Burnham portraying her, because apparently it could have gone down no other way. Which is, I don't know, maybe they won't go that way, but that seems to be the way they're going, and I actually think that's awesome. I do hope they go that way, and I hope they explore that more. I think that is very interesting, that, you know, Mirror Giorgio is trying so hard to change things so to happen differently, and I think it would actually be very powerful if she just can't. This is how they're always going to happen, and there's nothing she can do about it. So on an intellectual level, or not intellectual, but on a production sort of level, going outside of the universe a little bit, let's talk about the scene where David Cronenberg, he returns. And they did, I guess, explain more about this character and his interest in Giorgio. And of course, he had more knowledge about how the what's wrong with Giorgio, and it's funny how he didn't volunteer this earlier. He's like, well, I wasn't sure. Yeah, but you had an inkling. You could have let them know. But that she's really displaced from time, and that's causing her sort of molecules to deconstruct whatever sci-fi nonsense, which I have seen other like time travel and others and stories do it that way, that if you time travel, then your body starts to decompose because it's unique to that time. We're totally inconsistent with Star Trek though, but they do justify this when saying that it's because she's so removed. Not only is she 900 years in the future, but she's also removed from her own universe, and they say that the Prime universe and Mirror universe are drifting apart. So that's fine. I mean, and they do address it like everyone else from Discovery traveled 900 years in the future. We're like, yeah, but you're not from a parallel universe the way she is. She was too far removed from her, and I guess I could buy that. It is still, at the heart of it, sci-fi mumbo jumbo, but hey, it's Star Trek. We always have sci-fi mumbo jumbo. That's par for the course. But so anyway, this is the first time in canon the term prime timeline or prime universe is used, which it was subtle, and I do kind of like that. That they do call this the prime, and that kind of makes sense too. And I like how Giorgio points out, well, for me, my universe is prime and you're a mirror, and Burnham's like, okay, well, fair enough, which is true. But we are looking at it from our perspective because this is our universe, so that does make sense. Okay, so let's get into the one thing that everyone's making a big deal, because apparently they showed this clip on the Ready Room last week, which I purposely didn't watch. And since then, everyone's making a huge deal out of this scene because they mention, or at least imply, the Kelvin timeline. And a lot of people are excited, oh, look, the Kelvin timeline's now canon, which, of course, if you know my feelings on the Kelvin timeline, I'm actually not pleased about that. I would rather they just erase the Kelvin timeline from existence. I think the whole thing was stupid. There should never be alternate timelines like that in Star Trek. It just is an excuse for the writers to not have to deal with canon. I think that is bad writing. I went on record on this. The only Kelvin timeline movie I really liked was Beyond, and that's because it didn't really matter that it was in the Kelvin timeline. It could have taken place in the prime timeline, would have made no difference. The whole 2009 Star Trek, which first created the Kelvin timeline, I think is a fucking disaster. It's a dumpster fire. It's one of the most horribly written scripts I've ever seen. But my opinion, of course. So I'd rather they not reference the Kelvin timeline, to be frank. I'd rather that they make another movie that erases the Kelvin timeline so it never fucking exists. And I certainly hope it's not leading to them actually doing anything in the Kelvin timeline. I hope not. I hope it was just a way for the show and the canon to acknowledge its existence. Plus, it finally, once and for all, makes it very clear that Discovery's not set in the Kelvin timeline. Which, of course, everyone with the brain knew that. It was just wishful thinking. People, the aesthetics. Therefore, it must be in the Kelvin, whatever. But I already, that was the season 1 kind of bullshit I was dealing with then. Anyway, because they don't call it the Kelvin timeline. Of course, it mentioned that Romulan mining ship created an alternate universe or splinter universe or splinter timeline or whatever, and that, of course, is referring to the Kelvin timeline. But you know what? That's fine. I guess it makes sense. These movies, whether I like them or not, are canon, so if they want to acknowledge them, alright, fine, but I'd rather not. I'd rather they be erased from canon, to be frank. But, whatever. So, but it is interesting, and it was also referenced the Temporal Wars more, and it's saying that it showed this person wearing a TNG-style uniform, saying that they traveled from the Kelvin timeline and were involved in the Temporal Wars, so they're time traveling, and they eventually got, displaced because of that. And I thought it was interesting that they were like, well, why not just send him back to his own timeline? And he's like, well, the part of the Temporal Cores, we're not allowed to do that. Well, that seems bullshit to me. That seems like the whole General Order 23, don't go to the planet or we'll kill you. It seems like a law that's just there for plot convenience. Let me put it that way. A law that doesn't make that much practical in-universe sense. It's mainly plot convenience. Anyway. So, let's talk about that weird guy with the newspaper on the planet. Oh, wait, no, hold on. Before I get to there, how do we get to that guy? Well, the sphere data. And I kind of like that. Discovery is kind of a magical ship, isn't it? It's got the spore drive, it's got the sphere data, and it just so happens to go 900 years in the future and end up being more advanced than any other Federation ship there because of those two things. But whatever, I do, even though it makes it a bit fantastical, magical, I do kind of like the concept of the sphere data, and it is part of canon now, and it does appear to be leading to something that will connect to the Calypso, if that's how you pronounce it, short trek. Now, so they use the sphere data, and the sphere data, they asked, because Colbert asked, well, the computer, but the computer is linked to the sphere data, if there's any way to sort of save Giorgio, and they're like, yes, there is, go to this planet. And that's all it says. That's kind of vague. They're like, go to this planet and then burn him, and Giorgio beamed down, and then they say, oh, go to the spot on the planet. And I think the sphere data would actually be a bit more specific. I don't know. Again, I think it's kind of for plot reasons that it's being so vague. Like, oh, just go to this planet. Anyway, who the hell is that guy with the newspaper? As soon as I saw him, and I'm sure a lot of other Trekkies out there probably had the same reaction, but as soon as I saw him, I was like, Q! Now, to clarify, I don't think it is QQ. I don't think it's John Delancey Q. But mind you, if you recall, all the members of the Q Continuum go by the name Q, which I find incredibly confusing. I think they should have retconned that somewhere along the way, because that's actually quite dumb. So my first thought is a member of the Q Continuum, not Q himself, but a Q. Put it that way. But as the scene went on, and the more I thought about it, the more I think probably not. And would I be that happy if it was Q? Would that seem a bit too much fan service? A little bit. It wouldn't upset me too greatly if it was Q, but it would seem a bit too much of an easy, cheap, nostalgia shot. I think it would be better if it was actually some sort of alien we hadn't met yet. And the analogy I would actually make is kind of like the Guardian Forever. It seems like a sort of version of the Guardian Forever, where they had this portal, and well, this one's a lot more sentient, a lot more intelligent, and apparently can read minds because it knows exactly what's going on with Giorgio, but is sort of has this portal not just to times but also universe, so it's like a time and space, so like a much better version. I don't know, maybe not, maybe they're just these magical beings that are Q-like that just happen to live on that planet. I don't know, the reason why I'm thinking it's not Q is because it doesn't seem like a Q would be hanging out at that specific planet and that they could just go there. And that they would be that forthcoming and willing to help Giorgio, by the way, because most of the Q Continuum seem like to not give a shit about humanity. Like Q himself is the only one who really cared. So I hope it's not Q. It maybe could tie into something we're familiar with, but I would actually probably prefer if it is a unique thing. But I do hope they explain this a bit more. They don't have to do it outright. But I hope that's not all we get, that one scene with the newspaper guy. I hope we get more in the following episode that sort of at least gives us a very tentative or at least vague explanation as to who the hell this guy was. Because if not, I'll be quite frank, if not, it's going to come off as giant plot convenience. And in fact, if we don't get even the vaguest further exploration of this character, I am going to refer to him as Plot Convenience Guy. So hopefully, and to be fair, like stuff like the Guardian Forever was also a plot convenience thing, in order to get Kirk and McCoy to travel back to the 30s, but it was unique enough to be cool. So, and it was explained just enough because it says, "I am the Guardian Forever," and it explains that he's this device left behind as a gateway to time. Now that it is really plot conveniency, but it's enough of a backstory where you're willing to buy and go with it. So far, we don't have any explanation backstory who the hell this guy is, so I need something for him not to be Plot Convenience Guy. And by the way, the way he was behaving reminded me actually a lot of an episode of Stargate SG-1, where they were like the main villain Anubis. They were in like some alternate dimension or whatever, and the main villain Anubis was portrayed himself to Daniel Jackson as just this guy sitting in a diner reading a newspaper, and he looked he was dressed like similar, like in the 50s kind of fashion, like, and all obsessed about, oh, this is what the newspaper says. So, and also he was a bit heavy set, just like this guy was. So it reminded me a lot of that. But anyway, so yeah, there's definitely no in-universe connection to that. So anyway, what else we got in this episode? We got a revelation on what the distress call was that happened at the heart of the burn, which asks more questions than it answers, which is good. All for that. It's Kelpians, which I think is a bit coincidental, but whatever. I'm willing. Right now, they haven't given us enough for me to sort of make a judgment on it so far. I'm with it so far. I'll see where they go with this. And okay, so let's talk about the mirror universe itself. How back in this episode took place solely in the mirror universe, and it looks like that's going to continue on to the following episode. And I can see why a lot of people maybe wouldn't like this, and I was kind of done with the mirror universe, but the way they do it actually makes a lot of sense because it's through a character story. It's through exploring Giorgio's character and what she's about, and I think it's really well done in that way. In fact, I am of the mind that perhaps they're coming to the conclusion that the conclusion they're building to is Giorgio realizes that she doesn't actually like that universe and she doesn't belong there, because most of her behavior and the way she reacted was, I hate you, I hate this universe, my universe is much better, blah 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 blah, and I think maybe she kind of learned from the time she spent with Discovery to move beyond that and see beyond what she simply used to be, and that she grew because of her interactions in the Prime universe with the Discovery crew. And I think that's portrayed here. They're hinting at that with her interactions with Saru, who she's being like really nice to or whatever, in the guys, while staying in character as much as she can. But you can tell that she has this connection with him now because of that. Because of the time she spent in the Prime universe. So that's really interesting. And again, I'm really willing to see where they go with this. So far, I like the implications that Burnham simply just was going to betray Giorgio no matter what, and there's nothing she can do to stop it, and how she's kind of turning their relationship on their head. I do like all of the Lorca references. I never heard anything about a Jason Isaacs cameo, so I doubt they'll actually show him, and they don't need to, but they definitely needed to mention him because he was a major part of this storyline that was happening. And so, yeah, I kind of like the mirror universe-ish isness of everything that's happening here. It did make me interested to see it again because, as I said, they're doing it through the character of Giorgio and expanding her character in the way that actually makes me understand her and more interested in her than I was before. So, my rating for Terra Firma Part 1 out of 10, I'm going to give this an 8. Extremely good. I did really enjoy this episode. I didn't think it was like one of the best things ever, but I was surprised at how much I liked it and how interested I was in it, and I thought it was a great character exploration. So yeah, I just can't wait to see part 2 and where they take the story from here. So that is it for my review of Terra Firma Part 1. Be sure to check out my channel as I continue to cover Discovery and also cover many more Star Trek shows and shows like Breaking Bad and The Outer Limits. And next week, I will begin my coverage of Season 5 of The Expanse, where I'll be doing a review and a live discussion video every week, covering every episode of The Expanse, which will begin next week with 3 episodes, so doing all 3 episodes at once. Although I'll be doing separate reviews for each episode, but I'm going to do one live discussion video for all 3. So anyway, thanks so much for watching. Be sure to check that out and check out my channel so you can keep up with all that. And thanks a lot for watching.